My first questions are for Mr. Cory on the Canada Infrastructure Bank. And there's two areas I'm interested in. One is your growth chart, which shows $35 billion by 2028. And the other area I'm interested is the level of private investment. So with regard to the growth chart, your financials, well, first of all, the investment closes, that's the term you use in your annual report. There's 4.9 billion, and on your financial statements for 2022, it's 1.4 billion. And so when you look at the rate of growth, when you look at the annual report, it's really an accelerated rate of growth over the next several years. And it's not convincing. It doesn't look feasible. So I would like to hear your comments with regard to how you're going to get there by 2028. And the other area I'm interested is the level of private investment. I was on this committee when the legislation for the Canada Infrastructure Bank was brought forward by Minister Morneau. So we had an opportunity to question him. And he continued to say that there would be, what they were projecting was $4 to $5 of private investment for every dollar from the infrastructure bank. And his emphasis was on private investment. And now I notice from your annual report that there's a shift from private investment to institutional and private investment. And actually most of the investment not from the Canada Infrastructure Bank, but from the institutional, there's very, very little of what I would consider private investment. So there's been a big shift. We were promised $4 to $5 for every dollar. And now I see in your annual report, you're looking at $1 to $1. And it's no longer the Canada Infrastructure Bank $1 to $1 of private investment. You've linked in private investment with institutional investment. So it's been watered down. So why don't you start with the private investment? I'd be interested, how did the bank get from what Minister Morneau committed to, $1 to $4 or $5, to $1 to $1 with an emphasis now on institutional investment? Like, how did you get there? And the other question I have is, why didn't the private sector investment materialize? Like, what happened? What forced you to shift? And there must be a reason. Have you done any work on that? So can you just start with that premise? Why is there a shift from $1 to $4, $1 to $1?
Absolutely. Thank you very much for the question, Senator. Let me take it in the order you asked. First, it's really important to just talk about for a second what we mean when we talk about private and institutional capital, as you mentioned. Certainly, our view is that as long as we're bringing in dollars from outside the tax base is really important. Finding ways to leverage the private sector is important. Institutional capital refers to the large pension funds in Canada, the Caisse de dépôt in Quebec, teachers or CPPIB, who are investing in infrastructure assets, of course, all over the world, and haven't historically been investing in Canada. And from the start, this is not a change. From the start, the goal of the CIB was to bring those dollars into infrastructure projects. So the private and institutional, the reason they're lumped together is because they are, although institutional capital has a slightly different definition, they both have the same benefit to Canadians. That's money that we don't use from the tax base to pay for infrastructure projects. It grows the total pie of what we're building. And so for us, that's absolutely success. So we view private and institutional capital together as a pot.
Even if you look at those two sources as a pot, you've still gone from $1 to $4,
right,
down to $1 to $1.
Right. So let me take that part of your question. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. So this is a really important question, and it's one we do get asked a lot. At the start of every project, Our job is to figure out why it's stuck and what's the least amount of money we can put in to get it unstuck. Usually the reason a project is stuck is because of two things: over either cost or it's really risky. And so we're putting in taxpayer money to make it happen. The private capital, there's two ways to think about it. One is how much comes in the day we make our loan. So let's say there's a $100 project and we lend $50 and the private and institutional capital is $50. That's the one-to-one that you're referring to. That's what happens at the start of the project. But then we get paid back. Ours is a loan. And so unlike a grant, the $50 that we've put in gets paid back. And we put that money into the next project and the next project. So our ratio, the private capital ratio, is going up over time as our money goes into future projects. So what Minister Morneau originally said to you, the concept of an infrastructure bank and of that 4-to-1 leverage is still in the long run where we're headed. And as we keep putting our money in, we will continue to see our capital used on projects and more private capital attracted to it.
But it's
Address for
my time is up.
your time is
Oh, okay.
up.
Put me on second round.
Oh
because
yes,
I have. Yes,
I put
okay.
you.